I can save a lot of money and just get AI to do something. But what are some of the things you see happen if people jump to the quick AI easy answer before they've actually put in place the right elements of clarity?
The clients that are most successful and see repeated success are the ones that are doing the least amount of things. They're super hyper-focused.
And I also think that you run the risk. If something is overly complicated and trying to do all the things rather than customized to understanding your business and what you need and what those goals or targets should be, that also runs the risk of, because then we don't really understand the tech or what that agency or expert's trying to sell us, so you can justify a big spend and not be asking the right questions. Agencies or experts can use that against a business by complicating things. Do you know what I mean? So what are some of the pieces that you think are either red flags that like an agency is robbing you blind, or that you should work with someone? Like, what are the questions that help you filter out whether what someone is suggesting you need in that stack of tech is legitimate? If you've been asking questions about how to keep pace with rapid technological advancements in AI, automation, data analytics, any of these topics, then this is a chance to listen in and hear some insights from someone who's living and breathing all of the changes every day. I am really excited to have someone I consider a dear friend, Ana Raynes, CEO of Simplified Impact, joining me today to talk about keeping pace with digital transformation. So Ana, thank you for joining me. I'm keen for you to maybe set the scene a little bit in terms of the work you do, what you're seeing. You have this unique aspect from my experience when I look at the clients that you work with, of working with business to business clients, working with brick and mortar clients, and understanding some of those pieces that often tech focused companies or agencies don't see around things like the difference of driving foot traffic and online presence and all of these types of things. So I was wondering if you could set the scene for people who don't know you, the work you do, who you work with, and how that kind of sits in this space of just trying to keep up with digital transformation.
I work with so many businesses. I really started in social media with a company that I had myself called Smart is Cool, which was amazing. Where we are right now with AI is just incredible, and like what can be done. If you want to jump into that, the changes we're seeing and what we're seeing in the industry, I think anybody who is a business owner or an agency owner specifically, right? There's so many jobs in that AI is assisting with, right? So it's like how you use it. I was looking at this one AI that will literally log into your website and optimize all of the pages, back end, front end, and then you just have to go and double check. There's just a lot of rapid change coming. It's really fascinating. We have done to mitigate is we have gone more in person. We're doing a lot more in person. We're getting a lot more personal. I see my clients probably, not all of them, but most of them once a quarter, some like once every 6-7 weeks. So that personal touch is going to be so important. And it just can't be in person. It has to be your personal touch. For example, we have Monday.com that we use.
Yeah.
We probably would not. I think personalization with AI is a really great formula, but like you really have to be aware of that, right? You can't just, I don't think Zoom is going to cut it 100%.
And I think that's an interesting point, because when you talk about that AI that can go through your website and do all of the aspects itself, and you just have to check it. I think one of the pieces that's really interesting to me in this conversation is trying to figure out these distinctions between where is it that actually there's work that needs to be done that is personal and manual, not just an automated piece. Where is there the aspects that automated and use AI? And I think some of that work that you and your team do with people is a distinction that we need to be thinking about, because it can seem like, oh, fantastic, I can save a lot of money and just get AI to do something. But what are some of the things you see happen if people jump to the quick AI easy answer before they've actually put in place the right elements of clarity of, you and I were having this conversation the other day. If we don't actually have the message dialed in yet, you can automate it all you like, but it's still not going to get results.
Your assistant. It's assisting you with something, but you still have to go in. You still have to have, first of all, your touch, what makes you different, right? So not only the AI going in and checking it, adding your personal touch, at the end of the day, a tool is only as works as well as you use it. So you have to have the expertise to know how to use it, what the input is, what the questions are, right? So if you don't have that and you just allow it to think for you, you're going to be quite embarrassed or do things really wrong.
Putting in all of those elements that you spoke about, your methodology or your IP or how you approach and work with clients, the thing that's embarrassing, as you said about it, is if someone just types the same question into any AI and literally gets what you've put on your post or on your website, that actually makes you look like you have no idea what you're doing. That doesn't make you look like an expert.
You definitely want to make sure that you're checking, that you are looking at the things and be like, okay, like you would anybody else on your team, right? Think of it as a team member. Because one of the things that we do is we're meeting with our teams on a weekly basis. We're checking monthly. We're seeing what's being done. We hold them accountable in the same way you should hold AI accountable, because I just had a meeting with a friend and she was showing me, oh, look what this can do. I went on a trip with a client and then he was like, oh, look at what this can do. I feel like a lot of people find a certain tool and they're like, oh, this is great, but they're never checking, like doing those you would with an employee, but they're never. That is really important. I would say that's one of the most important things. One of the things that we do is we always test many tools at the same time. And we're always looking to see, okay, what's come out? What's better? Do we need to upgrade? Do we need to change? Because it's the same thing you would do with a team member. You would be like, okay, are they still doing the work that they're doing? Are they growing?
Well, because as you said, otherwise where it's that old saying of putting all your eggs in one basket, you're assuming that like, okay, we'll just lean all in on this and it will solve everything. And you're missing the point. This space is moving so quickly that one of the pieces in the last year or so that's been interesting is seeing so many people move over from something like Kajabi and a bunch of other things and realizing, oh, they could go high level and have 7 of the things they were paying for separately in one. Those changes are going to keep happening. If you don't be aware that you can't just pick something and then stick with it, you will get left behind. I love the way that you do that of like, oh, okay, there's this new thing and we'll try 6 things at Simplified Impact and figure out which one's the best. Obviously, for all of us running our own businesses who aren't living and breathing that you are, we also can't get distracted by constantly trying everything. How do you think we should be figuring out what we focus on and where we are playing and testing and seeing what's best for us as an organization when it's actually better to bring someone in like yourselves or an agency or someone to advise us on what we should be using?
That's a really good question. I mean, I think that all of the systems are constantly upgrading. So you just need to sign up for their newsletters for any tool that you're using, sign up for their newsletter, follow them on social, things like that. So you can keep up with like, oh, this changed, that changed. And even Slack there, I just got an email that they made all these different changes. I was like, oh, this is so cool. That's so cool. And I sent it to the team so we can start. You need to treat your technology like it's part of the team. You want to stay informed. And
True,
that
because
doesn't
otherwise
mean
you could be paying for something and it actually has 3 new features you'd love to be using and you just didn't know about it.
100%. And usually those features are free. They're included and
Included,
there's
yeah.
not, they're like, oh, we're getting better because there's competition, right? I would just staying up to date with what you have is really going to be the most crucial. For example, we have Monday.com that we use.
Yeah.
We probably would not, it would have to be off the charts what would come because we're so invested to move
True.
from there
All
would
of the
be
systems behind it.
such a
Yeah.
headache. There's just instances where you just can't move. I mean, we do, like the team, we read the newsletters, right? We follow the social media, we stay up to date.
Are there specific kind of questions you ask or ways that you do a bit of an audit of what you're currently paying for, the features that has, what you're using? Like, are there things that we should be going through a bit of a checklist in our own minds with? That's really helpful to like read the newsletter, keep on top of changes. how often and what things should we be using to audit what we're paying for currently?
Because I do it so different for my team. We're like, okay,
Okay.
are we using this? One of the things that we do actually, because we have a pretty big team, we're 13,
Yep.
and sometimes we do have too many tools. We'll keep a tracking list. Once a month, we ask the team to go through and check mark what they've used in that month. We
Okay.
know, oh, is this being used? Is this being used? Okay, this isn't being used. Maybe we need to get rid of that.
And one of the other bits that I'm really curious about when you talk about these changes and what is possible in this space is, do you have an opinion around the areas where we should be spending money, potentially changing our whole systems and or ways we're doing things related to technology and the changes, and where we should be still just bootstrapping and going simple of just use a spreadsheet until you figure out what you're doing here? Like, what are those areas where you think we're actually being unwise as a business leader to not be spending some money versus the bootstrapping and staying old school?
We still do with a lot of clients numbers tracking on spreadsheets with like something like a supermetrics. Well, so it's still
Okay.
kind of technology, but you could do it
Yeah.
manually with some manually. And there's a lot you can do with AI too, with like tracking and numbers. There's also, I just had that conversation at brunch actually with my friends. I'm so not a manual person. Oh my gosh, I was looking for a pen the other day and I was like, I don't think I have a
Yeah.
pen.
You, unlike me, who has like a pencil case with
I
me at
know,
all
you color.
times
Yeah, so
in
I'm like,
every
I
color.
mean, I found one, but like I just don't.
Yeah. And that's a
Yeah,
preference thing too. Like different people are going to come at this differently. I suppose the
yeah.
question though is really around, it takes us back to that element that we talked about before of when do you keep something manual because you haven't evolved yet as a company to a point where the way you're doing it actually works and lands well. So spending money or setting up a system would be premature. I think that's kind of an important aspect of this. Because you can
Well, I
get
think you could.
tempted to just
Yeah.
spend money on sexy, like, oh, there's this new thing and I need to spend money on it and it will fix the problem. And I think one of the bits I'm keen to, because you have a systemic brain, you're not just a tech
Mhm,
person, how do we
mhm.
make that distinction? Because we could spend a lot of time and money prematurely and not get results.
Here, so usually when you've spent money prematurely, you get frustrated and everybody stops using it. So that's why
Mm.
keeping a checklist is really important. Because
Right.
if something's not what happens, you would think what would happen is like, we're just going to keep going until you figure this out. But most people, they just stop using it and they forget
That's
about it.
true.
And then a year
Yeah.
later or down the month, they're like, when is this charge? So if you keep a checklist
Mm.
and you just go back at the end of the month and go, did I use this? Did I use this? Did I use that? Is going to keep you accountable for like, am I using this? And then
Okay.
when do you upgrade? I would say the upgrade when it feels like you need some help. I would go technology first, like a VA and things like that. I'm just trying to think. I'm like, I worked with
Yeah.
companies that, let's talk brick and mortar. It's free, and that's how they do. They bring in all their leads, and then it goes into windows, roofing, fences, things like that. It's easy. Like the lead comes in, goes to a call center, pick it up. For example, one of those companies that we were working for, they went to a HubSpot and they were like, this is so much, right?
Yes.
Things like that. It's
Yeah.
like,
And you didn't
it's not
need that level of complication.
simple. I guess, yeah. Like, don't, if it's simple and it's working, try it,
Yeah.
test something else. Usually, the simpler it makes your life, the better. If something is complex or you find it hard, you're just not going to use it. When we take on new clients, we do think about the client personality before we
Mm.
give them a tech stack. So we're like, oh, this person, no, they're not going to be able to handle, you know what I mean? Or this, and
Yeah.
we
Because
are
it doesn't matter how
really
good it is or what it can do. If you're not using it or you're not using it appropriately, again,
Mhm.
what's the point?
That's one of our biggest like, okay, what tech are you using? And we definitely have meetings about should we be using this with that person? Should we be using that? Yeah. There is definitely a personality for different tech.
Have you found any ways to, with a client where you feel as a team really strongly that they should be using a particular technology, but there's an aversion on their part? Have you found ways to either describe how it's going to help or demonstrate to them the change it can create for them to help win them over? Because there could be a lot of people listening who are more like me and aren't naturally tech focused, where that would be helpful to hear. Maybe you tell some stories of like, how did you win someone over who was not prone to using tech?
If we know that It has to be related to money. So if we can show them how their money's being spent, if we can show them how they're saving money, right? Anything related to money, people are more open. And that's when we push. Otherwise, we just let it go. Different dashboards that will show you your return on ad spend, different dashboards that'll show you, okay, this is how many people came to your site, did this. Really anything that's related to money is going to be something. So HubSpot's a great example because it is very complex. And even though it seems simple, it can be. And it's also quite expensive. That's one that we always have to, most of the time, we have to win over. People are like, whoa. When we can show them what it can do and how it could track someone through the whole process, and then we can see and like really have attribution back to like where that journey started.
Which again, as you said, if you've understood the elements that are critical in your business, you'll then know whether is that therefore money worth spending? Because the piece that you said up front, again, I appreciate about the way that you work is not just coming in and saying, here's the 13 things you must be using. It's understanding what are the drivers for your business? What are the goals you're trying to hit? What are those KPIs? So are there particular things when you think about those elements of the goals we're trying to hit or the KPIs and then how that relates to the analytics we're tracking? Like, are there certain things that you think all of us should be looking at regardless, or are they all unique?
I think everyone should have at minimum Google Analytics,
Yeah.
and because it's free, you can just look at there's so many reports you can pull. So that's
Can you give
super
us some
easy.
specifics of things that like across the board people should do right now if they're not doing in Google Analytics,
Uh,
like the reports?
Really easy. I mean, they can look at their traffic, how many people are coming down their site. They can look at the revenue, how much money am I making? They can look at how many pages does someone visit on my site, things like that. So that's really important. If you're mostly do business on social media, then your insights on social are really important. If you're on YouTube, you should definitely be looking at, okay, what happens when I use this thumbnail? What happens when I do this, right? Testing, a lot of testing. LinkedIn, same thing, right? A lot of testing. Am I doing video? Am I doing images? What if I do long form content? What if I do short form? What if I do hashtags? What if I do that? I think you just have to ask yourself be curious. I think that's one of the things that really sets us apart is that we are so curious. 99% of the questions we ask ourselves, the client hasn't asked. They're just like,
So having that fresh perspective is important.
Sometimes you're so in the weeds. I think my biggest recommendation is wherever you want to grow, wherever you want that focus to be, champion of that focus. So let's say your website's really important because you're a local business and you really need people to go to your website. Google My Business is really important. Okay, so then use that a lot. When you're traveling, use Google My Business. Do different things that are going to encourage you. Go to maybe go to like 20 websites. If you're on LinkedIn, spend an hour a day.
But at
Spend some
first,
time.
like when you're trying to get your head around it, it's always heavier lift at the beginning.
And have like folders. Like I have so many, oh my gosh, if you like Instagram, YouTube, all of them. I have so many folders and I have so many screenshots. My whole phone, I swear, I have a daughter
Oh.
that I love, but my phone probably has 1 to 50 of like Soleil, my daughter, to
Yeah.
50 of screenshots of things that
Oh.
I just love in marketing.
And so when you talk
Right?
about those folders, you're talking you like the look of something or you like how that video was. So it's the saving for the ideas to then test
Mhm.
them yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And I'll screen record. I'm like, oh, look, they went this, they went that, then they went to that landing page, then they did this. So then you're just like you're traveling with them, right? What I would say is don't do it for everything because it's a lot. I delegate. So I have someone who manages YouTube and I'm like, go do this, show it to me. I have people that are on Instagram. So if you're just like,
Yeah.
you're a smaller business, I would say focus on one thing. And I know everybody says that. It's true. Just focus.
Yeah. And how do you say you're going down that road? You're being curious, you're looking at what's working, what's not. Where does it come into the realm of needing to be careful because something might get a lot more attention or engagement, but it actually isn't necessarily exactly tied to what you're doing or driving someone to make the move that you want them to make as a customer to becoming closer to actually engaging with your offers or something like that. So how do you not get drawn into that, oh, this got way more attention, so I'm going to do more of that? I'm curious on that analytics level, What is it that helps us start to tune
Oh, it's always
into?
about dollars. And I say that to clients all the time. We just had this conversation with another client. They were like, oh, I want XYZ subscribers on YouTube.
Yeah.
And we were
To
like,
what
okay, do you want
end?
subscribers or you want dollars? Because they're driving
Because you've got to be
dollars.
clear on that outcome of like, is it just
Yeah.
about your ego? Look at me.
Focused for a week on subscribers and their lead counts down. I was like, well, it's a different strategy. And the person was like, no, no, back to dollars, back to dollars. Oh, wait, it has to add up. It has to be about dollars.
Which is so
Always.
interesting because it comes back to, and while you and I are focusing in very different areas of what we do with a business leader, a piece that is the same here is it comes back to, if you're not clear on those foundational elements of what success even looks like, what you're trying to build, you can be running off, pouring your attention and money into things that aren't actually getting you closer to that. You've said, oh, subscribers, when actually you wanted to grow the business. You've picked the wrong thing to track.
I mean, at the end of the day, like the focus has to be dollars. And I'm not saying like 100%, but I would say like when you're trying to figure out where you're going to put your energy for audience, I mean, you're nurturing that audience to turn them into customers. It has to make sense. It has to be somewhere that converts even a little bit. Let's say you've had like, I don't know, like one conversion. It's like, okay, that at least it's better than, let's see if we can make it more. Let's see if we did this. That's where you start getting curious.
A lot of people that I speak to, and I'm in the same category, have a challenge around that their ideal clients aren't people who hit like or comment on things. They're watching, they're not engaging way that means you feel you get that feedback that allows you to be informed of like, oh, people really responded well to this. What do we do in that space from having data informed decisions, playing with the tech, looking at analytics? Are there things we can do when our ideal clients don't engage in such an easy way to track?
That's where I would maybe invest in something that's a little bit more high tech, because you might be able to see where did they stop watching the video? How much of it did they watch? You know, you
Okay.
start asking other
So you
questions,
got to get
right?
more granular.
My views are up here, so I'm going to invest here, but nobody's actually giving me comments or likes. So it's like, well, how much of it did they watch? At what point did they drop off? I think it's Wistia. You can see if like someone like forwards and then backwards. So you can see those types of movements. So you would have to get a, but it depends. Like, what if you're just starting out? You're like,
Yeah.
I can't invest in that. If there's a certain place that you're at least getting some traction, more views, I would continue to invest in those places.
No, it's
I
fine. It's good.
challenged one of my team members with some really crazy numbers. I knew they were wild, but it made her get so curious.
And wild as in suddenly there was a lot more people looking at something and you wanted to know why.
I was like, I want 1 million people looking at this by the end of
Oh,
the
okay.
month.
As in you set a really big target of like, how do we get that? Gotcha.
She really needed and wanted to do this, and the results have been amazing.
And can you explain to me, so in terms of from that curiosity from playing and experimenting, you gave her that challenge because you wanted her to then have to kind of think differently about 15 different ways you could make that happen, test it. Like, so was it a expansive kind of let's
So
play?
like literally it's in less than a week. The particular client has had 59% growth and 59% growth in subscribers because it was a YouTube challenge, and 515% growth in views. And some of the ideas that are being generated, in order to get to the number that we're going to, you almost have to come up with 100 ideas a day because the number's so big. So I took everything, I removed everything and said, this is your only challenge, make it happen. I got some of the numbers last week and I said, okay, those numbers aren't going to get you to where you're going if you look at week over week. So what are you going to do this week to quadruple those numbers? So I've been pretty stern on the big number. And sometimes for me as a business owner, I try to do that for myself because everything else is happening. And I think that's the hardest part.
And so do you say, for example, if we bring this example of you setting that big goal, sort of tracking it over, I don't know, a few weeks or whatever it was that you were doing that to get to the level of insight, are you suggesting that as a business owner, the piece you said before, pick one area, really get curious, focus in on it, that maybe you do something that is an exaggeration scale wise of what you'd necessarily be doing long term, but it's trying to get us over that hump I was talking about where you don't yet have enough insight and data. So it's kind of go big for a short period of time, like a burst of energy and focus, and then go from that. Now I've had enough viewers that I can actually make some decisions of they're interested in this topic or they watch something more there. So are you saying that's a short-term strategy to get over
It's
that
a
hump?
short term, yeah, it's a short term strategy. I would give it where you would spend at least an hour or two a day and be like, this is my goal. And it's like, you're just not deviating from it. I should do it myself. I do it with my team, which is
Yes.
different. And the reason I know this is possible is because I have had clients, and this is how I knew. I'm like, oh, I've had client, and it always has to be tied to a specific number that would give us these like ridiculous goals. So like, okay, next year we want to grow by 700%. And we're like, are you insane? Like people grow by like 10%. But we've met those goals, and it's created leaders out of people that I was like, holy cow, right? Because I go to the team member and I'm like, oh, so we have this goal. I never present it like we have this goal, like we're going to do it. Like inside, I'm like, holy cow.
But
We're
it's a
gonna
little bit
not
like
get
that old
fired.
saying of if you're aiming so high, you're still going to land up there in the start. So where you'll land will be better than you would have without the goal. It doesn't actually
Yeah, but
matter if you don't hit it.
yeah, but the thing is, like with the goal, the clients I'm thinking specifically, we've hit it and gone above and
Yeah.
beyond.
Okay.
That the one client, what are we going to do next year? They weren't expecting it. Now we got to aim higher. And like, are you going to be able to hit it? Because again, this is more of a local brick and mortar. So
Oh,
you only
yeah.
have
Yep.
a
Yep.
certain amount of people that
Yes.
whatever.
Yep.
Because I've seen that done a few times in the last 2 years. I'm going to start doing the same thing. I'm going to set these crazy goals because I'm serious. It's not like I'm like, oh, so I'm going to set this. No, I'm like, no, I'm for real. And it's like, you're going to do it. And I know you are. And I'm going to push you. It's going to happen.
If we change tack then for a moment on that topic, because one of the other pieces that you and I have had conversations on and that
Mhm.
I've been talking about relentlessly for the last 15 or so years is that not everything is about scale. Not every business model is about getting massive. Sometimes the thing that makes your business unique and makes you get results is that it's really grassroots and it's local and all of these elements. If we shift into a headspace of saying, if you're a business where you're really clear that for you it's not about being massive, but it's about fine tuning and really bringing the right clients to you and serving them really well. But your aim is not about just explosive growth of numbers and sales and revenue targets. How does that play out from a still being curious, playing, learning how to
So
tweak
yeah,
and
the number
refine?
could be small. If you serve a small audience, that number could be small. So the true number, because I said 1 million, but I was kidding, was 1,000. But you can set 100. I think 100 is a big number if you're at
So it's just
zero,
picking
right?
the right thing. And then being relentless in the
Big enough that
pursuit.
it's scary, big enough that you're like, oh, how
Yep.
am I going to do that? Short
Yeah.
enough
Okay.
that you're not going to give yourself like a year. How are you going to do this in 1 month? I'm at zero. You got to get to 100 by and that was even another client. Same thing. We've been launching a lot of brands for people who have similar to you, who have like these big businesses. They don't have a big visibility. So like now we're bringing them. So we've been doing that a lot. So, so like getting to like 100 followers, it's like a
Yeah,
really big
it's a
deal.
big thing when you've always been offline and you have no online following to shift into
Yeah.
that space. Yeah.
And we don't really do social. We mostly do ads and strategy and stuff like that. But YouTube is part of our strategy.
I'm
Anyways,
curious with
it's
that,
not
like
even that. You can set like with this other client, it was a monetary goal, right? He wasn't like, he could care less how many subscribers he had. He was like,
yeah.
I want
Which for
millions.
some businesses, actually, that's what you should be doing. It's like irrelevant as long as we're getting enough clients that we're seeing that we're doing the work we want to be doing in the world and getting results, then it doesn't actually matter
Yeah.
if people hit subscribe or not.
Well, I would say, is there evidence that where you're focusing on is a money generator for someone in your industry? Because if there's not, there's plenty of clients that we don't want to do anything for. We just run Google Ads, like they have zero visibility, and
Yeah.
that's
Yeah. Because that's
a-okay.
not the lead indicator of that they're
Yeah.
chasing. Yeah.
Yeah, we have a hydraulics parts client. We only run Google Ads. That's it. And we make them millions. And that's it. I don't
Yeah,
need to
this
post
is
one
and
thing.
and this is the piece that I do love about your approach though, because so often if someone hires an agency or an expert, it's like automatically there's the menu of you have to do all the things rather than going, what are you trying to achieve? What would be the simplest way to get there?
We've been talking a lot about that. The clients that are most successful and see repeated success are the ones that are doing the least amount of things. They're super hyper focused
Yeah.
on just like
And do
certain
those things
areas.
well. And I also think that you run the risk, and this kind of takes us into an interesting area as well. If something is overly complicated and trying to do all the things rather than customize to understanding your business and what you need and what those goals or targets should be, that also runs the risk of, because then we don't really understand the tech or what that agency or expert's trying to sell us in the complexity, we're like, oh, that sounds like a lot. So you can justify a big spend and not be asking the right questions. And agencies or experts can use that against a business by complicating things. Do you know what I mean? Like there's no transparency of even knowing, is that true? Do we need those technologies? So what are some of the pieces that you think are either red flags that like an agency is robbing you blind, or that you should work with someone? Like, what are the questions that help you filter out whether what someone is suggesting you need in that stack of tech is legitimate?
I come from a belief system, and I saw a friend who also does things the same way. We always, and honestly, it's been through years and years of experience. That would be one thing that I would say, is work with someone who has been in the industry for, at minimum, I would say like 8 years. Because they've gone through the waves and
Mm.
have felt enough pain to now have such conviction that they know, they're like, we're not going to do that. We're going to make things simple. I was at a presentation for one of my friends. I gave him a lead, and he showed up so confident because he's amazing at what he does. Everything was so easy to follow. This is what we do. This is what we've done for other clients. This is the percentage. This is how much you pay. If you want this and this and that, we can add it later. This is our process. There was like literally no questions to ask because it was just so simple. I think AI is honestly going to change that. What I would do is put that proposal through AI and be like, what do you think about this? What are the
As
flaws and
in,
what?
so an agency gives you their proposal of like
Mhm.
what they're
Or
offering to do and the costs,
or
and
the
put,
transcript, yeah,
yeah.
of like the call with them, put it into AI and like asking, I mean, maybe putting the proposal in there, not a good idea, but because
But you
it
could
will,
take sections of like a paragraph
yeah.
of an answer or something. Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure people are doing it anyways, but I'm just saying like that's
Yeah,
probably
be
not nice.
careful.
But
Well, but
either
it goes
way,
back
but
to
I'm
your point of using the AI like one of your team members, because you're saying, I don't actually have the skill set to analyze whether this is a good response to our
yeah.
request. So
But it means
ask,
like, oh, that's right. We're live. You and I aren't just talking. Like,
but it's still
but
assessing it.
AI is
Yeah.
going to change that, right? That's what it's changing. It's creating, it's like the next wave of like the internet. Like when people were like,
Mhm.
oh, this internet thing. AI is at 20 times the information. People are going to do that. They're going to be like, I have a client who took his 22, put it through AI, put in all of the supplements that he was taking, put in all the things, his age, what his parents have died of. And AI came back and was like, you shouldn't be taking this, you shouldn't be taking all this stuff, and was like, this works against this because of these genes that you may have, or like insane. Like I'm telling you, some of the things people are doing. I was like, wait, what? He's like,
Wow.
yeah, I didn't even know that. Like, I don't know. I don't know enough
Yeah, but
about
these
what he was
elements of this will
doing.
counteract with that. And because you have a,
Yes,
yeah, yeah.
exactly. Because of his gene structure. So then he took that to his doctor, and now they're checking him because he might be on the wrong thing, which is causing adverse because of they never looked at his.
What's
To
so
me,
interesting
that
about
does
that
get.
example, though, because if we take that and pretend for a moment that you were the health practitioner or the some kind of person that was working with him before, what
Mhm.
that example shows to is goes right back to what you and I are both passionate about, of why it's so important to actually listen to your clients and understand their unique setting and not just have an answer. If you don't take the time to actually understand customer or a business that you're working with, it is very easy for them to do something now like what you just described, where suddenly
Mhm.
it's, oh, you've given me off the shelf advice that is actually not relevant for me. That's an
Yeah.
example of where we can use something like the AI to bring efficiencies or test our own thinking as an organization, but why that piece of trying to build connection and rapport with people and ask the right questions and draw things out is going to set us apart. Because you're right, so many businesses are just going to be irrelevant because they've got such cookie cutter answers to everything that no one will want
Mhm.
that in the next few years.
I work with a neurologist in Miami, and he spends hours with people. And that's why people come from all over the world to see him, because he
Yeah.
just, and his biggest thing is that he listens, because he's like, the symptoms are not the problem. A symptom is a symptom. He's like, you have to know, what does this person do when they wake up? What are they doing? What is their
Yeah.
family history? What are they thinking? What is their mind? And he
Yeah.
talks about a healthy mind. And he's like, your mind
Mhm.
is not exploring that. You're never going to cure someone. You're
No.
never, and he has patience and he's just incredible. And
Yeah.
that's the truth, is that it does tie it back to like, you really need to understand. And if you have a good relationship with your client and they come
Mhm.
to you with that, so interesting, let's explore it together. And they're going to
Yeah.
see it as a partnership. And those are also lessons being in business so long, that I have had those experiences, right? Where you're with a really great client. So I'm going to bring this person in to help. And you have two choices. I can get nasty, or you can be like, okay, I'm going to take a deep breath. This feels a little uncomfortable. They
Yeah.
may know more than me, but what if together we made
Mhm.
this bigger? It's always
Yeah.
worked out for me,
Mhm.
where I have created bigger, better relationships, because
Yeah.
that's always been my approach. So you do the same thing with AI. Someone comes to you with it, and you're like, oh, that's interesting. How can we work on this together? How do we do this together? Right. But if you haven't built that rapport, if you don't have that relationship, if you're not really trying to service your clients, then yeah, they're going to be like, bye.
Which I think kind of does come back down to this element from the beginning of the conversation of, as we think about that topic of keeping pace with digital transformation, it's always this merging or weaving together. How do we be really clear on what we uniquely bring as an organization and ensure that foundation is solid, and that then we're using these changes, we're being curious, not scared and defensive about changes coming with tech, use those to create a much stronger delivery of a value proposition to a customer, rather than kind of being scared and digging our heels in or thinking tech's going to save us. It's really merging those things together, isn't it, that will differentiate.
I have my moments. So I'll tell you two things. One, think about what the internet did to the world. It's unimaginable where we're going, right?
Changing
And the
so
internet
quickly that you can't predict. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And the internet has done good, and so many, gosh, both are true. But then there's also this funny meme that one of my friends posted that was like, women, it was something like laws were trying to be passed against cars. The town or the people were afraid that men having cars, because men were first, they would be able to get to their mistresses much faster. But that's
Yeah.
at the time seemed very logical.
Yeah.
And there's lots of things from the dot-com booms where you were like,
Mm.
what? That's so dumb. Why would you do it that way? Now, in hindsight, I think for most of us in our lifetime, we will see like a world that is unimaginable. You can't fight it, really. It's like, how do you work with it? And if we each make each person individually, I guess it's the same thing like the Buddhist. If you as an individual promise to do the right thing by yourself,
Mm.
you can only focus on you, right? You can only do the right thing. So
Yeah.
if you do the right thing and I do the right thing and they do the right thing, then
Yeah. Ripple
maybe there'll be
effect.
less wrongs. I don't know. That's how I see it.
So, as we sort of wrap up the conversation, because again, we could go into another 15 different areas in detail.
There's a program, I think it's called start.me, and you can save, it's almost like when you save folders on your browser, but I feel like that's very messy. I don't like that. So the starts like start.me will organize all of your different URLs, right? So it'll put everything super, super, super organized, and it also organizes your documents and things like that. What I would do is like every time you do a prompt or every time you're looking at something, start to organize it. Have it either in that or having in a document, and then document all the things. Like start to save for your specific business. Just document all of your searches, document how you're updating your chat. Document questions that you're seeing when you see an ad and it's like, oh, I asked these 5 questions. Okay, try that. Did that work for you? I go back to what I said in the beginning, and I guess I'm going back to the same thing now that I think about it.
That's
It's
good.
like, you need to treat it like an employee. You need to test it. You need to review it. You need to, all of the things, right? And you're documenting, right? Like when you meet with someone, or we just redid all of our job descriptions just because they needed to be updated given like the different changes in what's happening in the world. What job description would you give your AI, and what does that look like? And what are the questions do you have a handbook? put that, ask it questions about your handbook. Do you have your values? Put that, like all of the things. And there's ways to make it private. So I would definitely get the paid version. There's a $20, $40, and $200.
Is this of Notion or is this of the start.me that you're talking about?
This would be for ChatGPT, and then
Oh, I
start.me
see.
is
Right.
free. Yeah.
Yeah.
Start.me is free. It's just a way of like
Sure.
organization.
So it's whichever
I like to think of,
AI
like,
you're using, get the
organization.
paid version so that
Yeah.
there can be a level of privacy with what you're putting in.
With what you're putting in, because you want to be able to go in and like, you don't want people to see all your stuff, but there might be things that you want people to see because people are using chat as a search engine. Perplexity is a phenomenal one that people love to use because it gives you all the search results. Chat, I would upgrade, and then like a job description for it and questions, and I would just treat it like another person.
What probably to end on that could actually be a way, particularly for anyone who's hesitant, this theme that you've talked about quite a bit of treating it like a team member, having expectations for it, having a job description, being clear, that might be enough of a mental shift to kind of go, okay, now I know what I'm dealing with, because otherwise it can just feel like this, oh, big, scary unknown. So that is a really a helpful suggestion.
Just like look at it like, okay, how would I know people that have like named their AIs and they're like,
Yeah,
oh,
no, so do I. Yeah. It's a little bit like we've got upstairs and downstairs in our house, we've got those robotic vacuums and they have names. And it's like, oh, Dave just did the vacuuming. Thanks, Dave. I've made sure they have male names because I refuse to have females serving me in the house because they're going to be white men. Thank you very much. There's some helpful kind of bits that make something more understandable to things we're already familiar with. And Anna, if someone is curious to connect with you or learn more about Simplified Impact and working with you, what's the best place for them to go?
SimplifiedImpact.com. That's honestly where most people start their journey. They just, contact page and they can get in touch with us, somebody on the team.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I hope that this has been helpful for people. And do either, if you've got particular questions or comments on what we've talked about, feel free to literally comment and Anna and I can check that and come back to you. But otherwise, reach out to Anna at the website for simplifiedimpact.com, and it would be great to see some people start to tap into your brain, Anna.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
For the time. Thank you. Bye.